Hello, Low for Life here, bringing as a brand new deck profile, and today we got Malefics. Malefics are one of my favorite, villain archetypes out there, and mostly for their aesthetic, if I'm being 100% honest. They look so cool. The monochrome design and the masks and everything. It's really, really cool, and heck, Bonds Beyond Time was just a great movie in general. But I digress. The Malefic archetype has been unplayable as a deck forever until finally the newest support came out that effectively changes everything about the archetype. So yeah, let's get on with this, because this is a fun deck to play around with. It's nothing like anything amazing. I wouldn't even take this to a locals. I've gotten this as good as I can get it in my experience. So let's get on with this. First and foremost, triple good ol' Malefic Cyber End Dragon. He's kind of like your boss monster. He's a 4K beater who's easily summoned. So if you're not familiar with Malefics, you can only control one Malefic on the field. Only that Malefic can attack. Nothing else can attack. And actually, there can only be one Malefic on the field. So if your opponent summons one, you're kind of screwed. But I digress. And then that's about it. Like, the only other thing that they have is their summoning condition, where they banish their original forms from the deck or extra deck. Or in the case of Rainbow Dragon, he can banish his original form from the hand as well. I mean, heck, they didn't even let Malefic Cyber keep his piercing effect from the original, which is pretty stupid, but oh well. He's a 4K beater who's easy to summon. That's the big thing. So pretty simple of that. And then I am playing, and I know I'm going to get some criticism for this, 3 Malefic Blue Eyes White Dragon. Now, I'm not using him primarily to summon. I'm using him primarily as synchro fodder, and also the occasional time when I do summon him, I mainly use him for making Xyz plays or going for more damage. This deck is an OTK going second deck through and through, and you need to be able to just push as much damage as possible. And Malefic Blue Eyes, being a 3K beater who's easy to summon, just kind of goes hand in hand with that. Next up, 3 Stardust. Stardust is another, just really good card. He's the other of the really, really good Malefics in the main deck, in that he banishes, of course, his original form from the extra deck, so you don't have to worry about dead drawing the original form. Same thing with Cyber End. Not much else to say about him, other than he's a 25 beater who's a level 8. Also, he protects your field spell while he's on the field. For some reason, he's one of only a few Malefics to actually have an effect. So that is something to keep in mind. Just while he's on the field, field spells can't be destroyed by card effects. That's very, very handy. Of course, if your opponent has Galaxy Cyclone or whatever it is, the one that banishes, you're kind of screwed, but oh well. That's where Malefic Territory and protection from targeting comes in. So, yeah, just an overall really good card. Then we got 3 of the Malefic Paradox Gear. This is one of the 2 new cards, well, actually 5 new cards, but one of the 2 new monsters that just really makes this deck. And actually, did I say 2 new monsters? They only got 1 new monster. What am I saying? Anyway, so Malefic Paradox Gear, if you have a field spell on the field, you contribute it. Special summon Malefic Parallel Gear from your deck, and then add a Malefic monster from your deck to your hand. If it's in the graveyard, and I believe you can also do it on the field, but if it's in the graveyard, that's a big important one. If a Malefic would be summoned using its own effect, you can banish it as the cost for that summon. So, with Malefic Blue Eyes, I do not play the original Blue Eyes in here. Same thing with Rainbow Dragon, even though I do play Malefic Rainbow as well, but I do not play the original because they're dead draws. They're complete and total bricks. So, Malefic Paradox Gear acts as the original, as the fodder for that, and is able to banish itself for the summon of Malefic Blue Eyes or Malefic, a Rainbow Dragon. It can also count as Malefic Cyber End and Malefic Stardust, but the extra is really irrelevant, so we max out on those anyways, just to be able to summon them easy, but it does pop up every now and then, if Cyber Dragon gets bounced or something, so that is something to keep in mind. Speaking of Malefic Parallel Gear, I am playing 3 of him. I have seen some people play 2. I feel like it's necessary at 3, especially since it triggers Paradox Gear's effect so well, because you need to have Parallel Gear in your deck to be able to use Paradox Gear's effect, and without having 3 of each, it's really sucky. That being said, drawing Parallel Gear sucks as well. you really don't want to draw into it because you want to be able to use Paradox Gear's effect because that thing is amazing. So what is Parallel Gear? Well, he lets you synchro summon for a synchro monster using a Malefic in your hand. That is very, very simple just because it was made to bypass the restrictions on the Malefics. But however, nowadays it's even better because there's so many good synchro options. With this, you can hit any level 9, 10, or 12 synchro monster you want. That just needs 2 monsters to go into, because unlike the Nordic Mara, you can't use multiple monsters, you have to use 1 in your hand. So that does kind of suck as well. Also, even though I said 9, I'm not playing Malefic Red Eyes. I tested it out, it's just not worth it. So that's just something to keep in mind. Then, speaking of cards that are almost not worth it, Malefic Rainbow Dragon. I do play 2. He's another beater. Also has a soft spot with me because I love Rainbow Dragon so much. But however, the big thing that I use him for is Synchro Fodder with Parallel Gear. Because this deck can cheese out freaking GeoMathMech Final Sigma so easy because he just needs a tuner plus a non-tuner. So what I typically do is I use Rainbow Dragon for Synchro Fodder, and I use Cyber Dragon to actually summon himself because I don't want to have to waste my Cyber Dragons on Synchro Fodder. So that's what Rainbow Dragon is mainly here for. And of course, if I need to, I can banish Paradox Gear from my graveyard to summon him, but again, that doesn't really come up too often because I'm mainly using him for Synchro Fodder. Then we got for the one-ofs, good old Malefic Truth Dragon. This card, I will typically full Burial in order to just get it out of my deck. I don't like searching it unless I have to. Malefic Truth Dragon is a scary monster if your opponent's not expecting it, and it's very obnoxious. That being said, Malefic Territory, the card that makes this deck actually work as an archetype, screws over Truth Dragon a bit because it negates the Malefic effects during the battle phase, which then also prevents Truth Dragon from triggering his own effect. So, Truth Dragon, if a Malefic monster is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can pay half your life points, spell summon this card from your hand or graveyard. If this card destroys a monster in battle, it destroys all of your opponent's other monsters. Being a 5k beater, this card is really potent with how easy it can trigger its effect to open up your other monsters to be able to attack. There's just one little issue, is that, well, again, Territory negates its effects during the battle phase, so you can't pop monsters. It really does suck with that, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm only playing 1 of it. Also, because it can constantly recur itself, there's no reason to play more than 1 of it, and honestly, he's just more of an alternate win condition if need be. Now, that's it for the Malefics, but I do play some other stuff in here as well. First and foremost, I play 3 Gameciel, the Sea Turtle Kaiju. This deck has no easy way of spot removal for monsters or anything in just general terms. So if because you're going second, you need ways of breaking boards. So if your opponent has like an Appaloosa or like, I don't know, the Adamantia synchro that can negate spells and traps, and you want to be able to use your field spell, you're going to need to be able to get rid of those. So this is very important. Also, once we get Dragoon, that's also going to be important, so just keep that in mind. So Gameciel, he's weak. You can actually even play multiple Kaijus if you want to. Most of the Malefics, because Malefic Stardust isn't very strong compared to the others, but most of the Malefics can punch over most of the Kaijus, if not all of them. So that is something to keep in mind too. But Gameciel, again, is just the weakest, so that's why people play him. Then I also play 2 Denko Senka. This deck doesn't have a huge amount of normal summons. Really, honestly, your main one is Paradox Gear, sometimes Parallel Gear if you like just got screwed over. But however, your other normal summon is Denko Senka because this deck doesn't play a huge amount of trap cards. In fact, I'm only playing 5. So if you're going against a deck that is like, I don't know, Guru Control or Paleo or something, a deck that's going to have a crap ton of back row that you're going to have to worry about, because this deck does not handle back row well at all. Like most OTK Glass Cannon decks, it just can't fight through back row very easy. So Denko Senka is very important. I'm playing 2 in the main deck. I've very much considered playing 3, but I've kind of been switching back and forth between 3 and 2 of her. So it's really down to your personal preference and whatever happens to be the meta at the time. That's it for the monsters though. I am kind of trying to, I'm working out ways to play more of the hand traps and everything with this deck. This is deck that I've been working on quite a bit, but I found that hand traps, due to a variety of reasons, they just don't typically tend to work out in this deck too often. Moving on, we got 3 Malefic World. I know people don't typically like this field spell too much, but personally I like it. I just wish it had some form of protection for your Malefics, because that would be wonderful, but I digress. So this card, during your draw phase, you can cancel out your draw and basically get to select 3 Malefics from your deck. Any Malefic card, not just monsters too, which is wonderful. Your opponent picks 1 at random and it goes to your hand, the other 2 get shuffled back into the deck. So you can select 3 of the same card, guarantee you get that card, and then continue on with your way. The really nice thing is that technically speaking, the idea around not getting to draw with this card is to prevent you from drawing the bricks of the main deck, but because we don't have that, we don't really have to worry about it. So I do play some draw cards as well to make up for it. So it's just an overall really good card for what it wants to do. However, there are better field spells out there for Malefics, most notably Mounted Bound Creator, but it's kind of hard to play in the deck now because thanks of Malefic Territory, which we are playing 3 of. This is the card that ties the entire archetype together and makes it actually work as a functional deck. I am not joking. If you do not get Territory, you're going to have a hard time getting through the game. So what does Territory do? Well, so as I mentioned earlier, all Malefics have 2 unique effects. Actually 2 effects amongst all of them, with the exception of Paradox Gear and Parallel Gear. That being, oh yeah, and also Paradox Dragon in the extra deck. So that unique effects amongst them all is that you cannot control more than 1 Malefic on the field, and only that Malefic can attack. This basically gets rid of that. It says the effect of Malefic monsters that there can only be 1 on the field becomes that there can only be 1 with that monster's name on the field. So now you can only control 1 Blue Eyes, 1 Cyber Dragon, etc., etc. And then also during the battle phase, it negates the effects of all Malefics on the field, only during the battle phase. Now, why is this also important? Because when this card is activated, it activates Malefic World straight from your deck, and then makes it to where your opponent can't target it with card effects. This card is absolutely fantastic and is needed in order to make the deck function. I just wish the deck had more cards that did this as well, so that we had more ways of getting cards onto the field to allow us actually functional, to have a functional deck, but I digress. Next up, we got a card that I was originally playing 2 of, but I found that it's just too good not to play 3, and that is Malefic Selector. This card is, again, just absolutely wonderful. Basically, you banish 2 Malefics from your graveyard, any 2 Malefic cards from your graveyard except copies of itself, and then you add 2 Malefics with different names from both Selector and the 2 cards you banished. So this card effectively, because once the Malefics are in your graveyard with the exception of Paradox Gear, they're dead in your graveyard, so you banish those 2 and you get to add any 2 Malefics from your deck to your hand, as long as they have different names from the cards you banished and Selector. So basically, ideally, you're going to want to banish like Dispels or like Dead Territories or World or whatever, or Dead Monsters in order to get more of them back from your deck to your hand. It's just an overall great card, and because of this, we have to try and play as many Malefic monsters or Malefic cards in general as possible, even if we might not want to. Next up, we got 2 Malefic Divide. This is basically a monster reborn for Malefics. Target a Malefic in your graveyard, special summon it. It has its effects negated, banish it during the end phase. It's just basically a chum blocker and another way to get you more damage if you need to. It doesn't prevent the monster from attacking or anything, so, oh no, my monster died. Okay, activate this during my opponent's turn so I can save myself from getting killed, or during my turn so I can try and kill my opponent faster. Just, again, an overall really good card. You can also bring back like Paradox Gear or Parallel Gear, so you can try and have a monster in the field for maybe doing some Link plays or something. If you want to play Link monsters, personally I haven't bothered with Link monsters in this deck, but you can if you want. Next up, we got 2 Trade-In. This deck has a crap ton of level 8s. I'm honestly thinking about playing 3. The level 8s are Stardust, Blue Eyes, and Gameciel. Wait, or is Gameciel level 7? Crap. I feel like Gameciel's level 7, but Anyway, so we have at least 6 in Blue Eyes and good old Stardust. Typically speaking, I'll try and discard Blue Eyes more than Stardust because Stardust is actually useful for the most part, but it does still come up every now and then where I have to discard the other, but I digress. And moving on, we got 2 Called by the Grave because, again, we want to go second and actually try and play, but sometimes we got to go first, and this card is just helpful for getting the plays off. 1 Terraforming, 1 Foolish Burial. With Foolish, your main targets are good old Truth Dragon and also Paradox Gear. It's just down to you and whatever you need to have at that moment. It's also helpful for getting Paradox Gear in your graveyard in case you did draw a bunch of your your parallel gears, which does happen from time to time. 1 Monster Reborn, just maybe to bring back Paradox Gear or Parallel Gear. 1 for 1, this gets you straight to Paradox Gear, and thankfully we don't care about discarding the Malefics for the most part, so it gets you straight to your Paradox Gear, and it also gets a Malefic in the graveyard, ideally, so that then you can actually, you know, banish them for Selector and stuff. Moving on to the traps, I do play 3 Malefic Clawstream. This card, I've seen some people kind of be iffy on, but however, I feel like it's kind of necessary at this point just because it's a good 1 for 1 spot removal, something the deck doesn't really have. Basically, so long as you control Malefic on the field, whenever you activate this card, you pop a card your opponent controls. It's got to be a monster, which kind of sucks, but oh well. So it's just mainly to get rid of spot removal, and you can activate multiple in a turn. I mainly just use it to be able to get rid of threats in case I can't OTK, which does happen quite a bit, unfortunately. So it gets rid of threats, and then also it's a really good target for Malefic Selector because you generally don't want to banish any of your other stuff except for this and, like, you know, some of your monsters, but that's beside the point. Then I also play 2 Malefic Tune for whenever I have to go first and I need it. So basically this card, if a Malefic you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can activate this card, draw 2 cards. If this card is in your graveyard, except a turn it was sent there, you can banish it from your graveyard, add a Malefic monster from your deck to your hand. Just an overall really good card overall. Since your opponent's going to be mainly destroying your Malefics by card effect, because their attack is a bit too beefy to run over in battle, you're mainly going to be using it in response to like Lightning Storm and Dark Hole or something. Although a smart player will use the effect of Lightning Storm to destroy back row, because it'll also destroy the field spell, and that'll kill everybody else, so that's something else to keep in mind. Lightning Storm really screws over this deck, if I'm being honest, but I digress. I say that way too much. But anyway, so, yeah, Malefic Tune is a nice card. I've been tempted to play 3 of it, but I feel like just 2 is fine enough right now. Maybe in the future, if Malefics get more support, then it might be something to consider playing 3 of. Anyway, onto the extract. Aside from 6 or so, 8 or so of these cards in the extract, most of the extract can be kind of down to you and whatever you want to do. First and foremost, we gotta play 3 Malefic, just regular Cyber End Dragon, as well as also 3 Stardust Dragon, because, again, those are like our 2 main guys that we want to summon, actually, because Malefic Cyber End has big attack, and Malefic Stardust protects our field spells, so we want to be able to maximize on them big time. Then, I'm playing 2 Geomathmech Final Sigma. So, this card has a lot of effects, but the big ones is, this card is a 3k beater who is unaffected by all card effects except for Mathmech card effects while it is in the extra monster zone. On top of that, if it does battle damage while it's in the extra monster zone to an opponent's monster, so while you're doing battle damage through battling an opponent's monster, it does double battle damage, which is mean, and then it can attack a second time. So yeah, this is a really good card, and actually now that I think about it, it can't attack a second time. That's only if I've been playing Mathmechs a lot, so I got that mixed up, because one of the Mathmechs lets your Mathmechs attack, but I digress. So anyways, the big thing is, it's an untouchable monster with 3k attack, and who does double battle damage while he's in the extra monster zone. He's also super easy to summon. Your Parallel Gear plus any of your level 10 Malefics equals this thing, because he's generic of all things. Very, very obnoxiously powerful synchro for the archetype. Speaking of pretty decent synchros overall, Paradox Dragon I've been playing 2 of. Partly because Adamantia is so incredibly popular at the moment amongst other synchro decks right now. So Paradox Dragon, he's kind of like the deck's boss monster, kind of, sort of, not really, at least intended to be in the anime. And he's a level 10, you can only control one of them, and if there's no this is the big thing that annoys me. If there's no Malefic World on the field, he kills himself. So you can't like have any other field spells out with him, which is really obnoxious. But oh well, we don't care. We have Malefic World as our only field spell. Anyway, so whenever he's synchro summoned, you can target one synchro monster in your opponent's graveyard, spell summon it to your side of the field. This is so incredibly, really just obnoxious for your opponent to deal with, because any of their synchros in their graveyard can potentially be weaponized against them. So since your Malefics are able to punch over just about anything just fine, oh, your opponent's got a Borreload Savage Dragon? Okay, I'll punch that over and take it. Not that the effect to negate will matter, but, you know, oh, you have a Adamantia in your graveyard? Okay, I'll take that too. It's just an overall really good card. I've stolen, like, my opponent's, like, Ciphering Lord Omegas with it and everything to be able to just recycle, like my Malefic Tune and all that. That's worked out really well, and there's some other really good synchros that people play to take as well. So I do play 2 of them. I don't get to make them too often. You can play 1 and be just fine. It's just this extra deck is so like, how do I put it? It's open. It's very, very open. Honestly, other than the 6 monsters needed to summon your Cyber Dragon and your Stardust, and the 2 Geomathmech Final Sigma, it's all down to what you guys want to do, so yeah. And then for the XCs, I am playing one of number 23 Lancelot for negation. Same thing with good old Titanic Galaxy. For extra beating, I got number 22 Zombie Stein, because he's super easy to make in this deck. Number 81 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Super Dora for some protection and everything. Pretty good for making first turn if like you gotta go first, which really sucks for this deck. It doesn't have a lot of good turn 1 plays. And then number XX Utopic Dark Infinity. I'll be honest, I mainly just wanted to play this card ever since I got him, and hey, I have a deck that can actually play him now. He's a big beater who can summon stuff and just do damage, and so yeah, when he kills a monster in battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can detach material, target that monster, special summon it to your field in defense position. You can target another face-up monster that you controlled with special summon, gain life points equal to its original attack. You can only use each effect of them once per turn. Pretty good card overall, 4K. Nice to kind of get some life points too, because honestly this deck tends to take some damage if you can't get the ball rolling, so that is nice to have options as well. And that is it. I really like Malefics as a concept. I love their design. I love the idea of them being like evil, corrupted versions of iconic monsters in the past. They're kind of like Toons in that regard. Heck, this deck gets compared to Toons a lot. You know, with Toons, the comparisons are so similar. Like, oh my god, like with Toons, oh, Toon World gets destroyed, everybody dies. Oh, with Malefics, my field spell gets destroyed, everybody dies. It's an undersupported archetype that was used by a villain in the anime. It's just like Toons. There's so many similarities between them and Toons, and unfortunately, or I guess fortunately, depending on how you're looking at it, Toons just kind of get the bigger fan favorite because they're cute and funny and stuff. And to be fair, Pegasus was a better villain than Paradox ever was, so there is that too. And hey, we're getting Toon support soon, so maybe we'll get some more Malefic support, maybe, hopefully. Come on, Konami, please. This deck could really use some. I digress. What do you guys think? Do you have any ideas, recommendations, or concerns for the archetype, or this deck, I should say, and what you would change in it? Please let me know down in your comments below. Rate, comment, and subscribe, and thank you. Have a great day. Thank you all for watching the video. Have a great day. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. Rate, comment, and subscribe, and see y'all later.